Yeah. So, firstly, thanks for taking the time out and joining us. Do you reckon you could just give us a quick introduction about yourself and sort of what you've been up to during lockdown?
My name's Aaron Phipps. I play wheelchair rugby for GB. I was meant to be at the Paralympics in August last year, but that got cancelled, and you all know why. So hopefully it'll be happening in this August, and I hope to be there. I play wheelchair rugby, which is arguably the most ridiculous wheelchair sport because you are allowed to smash other people out of their wheelchair.
Awesome. Cheers. So, being a successful wheelchair rugby player and Paralympian, um, I'm sure you've come across your own set of challenges. So, starting from the beginning, where did it all start for you? And can you tell us a bit about your journey to get where you
Okay.
are now?
Yeah, so I contracted meningococcal septicemia or meningitis when I was 15, and as a result, became a bilateral below knee amputee. So I haven't got any feet. You just have to trust me on that. You can't see it on the call, can you? But that led me on to trying lots of different sports. I did a little bit of wheelchair basketball, quite a lot of wheelchair racing. I did 2 London marathons, and that led me on to trying wheelchair rugby. Fell in love with it. You can crash into people. It's absolutely amazing. I went to the London 2012 Paralympics, and I'm now training for Tokyo. So I hope to be there in the summer.
Awesome. How did you get into disability sport?
Okay, so I think, especially this week, when you think of, how mental health and awareness and how good physical activity is for you, I don't normally tell people this, but I'm just going to be honest. And that is that, to start with, I didn't want to try disability sport. I used to play a bit of basketball. I used to do lots of extreme sports before I had meningitis, before I became an amputee. And I'd seen a bit of wheelchair basketball, but it didn't look the same to me. Playing in a wheelchair just didn't feel right. And for years, I was like, nah, that's not for me. That's for those people. I don't do that. Nah, not for me. I didn't know anybody else who was disabled. It was actually my wife, Vicky, who saw a demonstration of wheelchair basketball at West Quay Shopping Centre in Southampton. So she dragged me down to a session almost kicking and screaming. And I went along and gave it a go. And look, I was terrible at wheelchair basketball. I haven't got the hands for it. But I just realised for all those years I've been an absolute idiot. And one of my big regrets is not doing disability sport when I was younger. I just started playing this game, and I was in this environment with people who had similar circumstances to me, that were just getting on with their life. And I just fell in love with it. I was just such a buzz. It was absolutely amazing. It was just really good to be active again and to be doing something, to be part of a team sport. And it just improved my mental health no end.
Going forward, so how did you kind of overcome these challenges you faced? I mean, one really inspiring one was Kilimanjaro, which I think everyone sort of needs to hear about. Could you just walk us through that for us, please?
Kilimanjaro, yeah. So that was a charity fundraiser, and that started. The idea was I wanted to be the first person in the world to get to the top in a wheelchair without any assistance. I wasn't going to be the first person to get to the top in a chair, and when my chair couldn't cope, they said to me, "We're going to have to carry you." I said, "No, you're not," and I ended up crawling on my hands and knees for 4 days to reach the summit. So we raised £20,000 for charity, and I didn't set an official record, but I think we can say I was the first person with my level of disability to get to the summit without any assistance.
Yeah, what did you think sort of kept you going? What was it?
Stubbornness, absolute stubbornness. I
Stubbornness.
mean, we'd raised so much money for charity. I just wasn't going to get carried, and it just felt normal for me to get out of my chair and start crawling. I now know that was bananas, but at the time I was just thought myself, rolling my shoulders back. There's no way I'm getting carried up this mountain. I'm going to do it myself. So I just dug deep and cracked on with it. It wasn't until I got home and told people what I'd done, and they said, what do you mean you crawled? And I go, well, just crawled. They go, what do you mean you crawled? And that's when the penny dropped of what I'd really achieved.
Yeah, I actually I watched the is it the New Leaf documentary on it? Did they
Yeah.
do a video on it? Yeah, I've watched that a couple of times now, and it's crazy. Honestly, it's mental. But fair play to you. With sort of mental health being quite a main concern now, and the more people are speaking out about it, the more awareness there is with it. What sort of advice would you give to people to keep a positive mindset, to overcome barriers?
I think, we all have bad days, don't we? I have days when I'm really struggling with my training. I'm really struggling with my sport. I feel overwhelmed with work and things that I need to be doing. But I think you just kind of need to put it in context. One of the things I do is I'm forever writing to-do lists so I don't feel overwhelmed. I've got a good support network of people around me who help me, who I chat to all the time. Particularly as chaps, we don't do that enough, I think. So it's really good to chat to friends, set up Zoom calls, have a catch up with people. And I think you just need a bit of perspective, really. I mean, lockdown has obviously been really tough, but I just think I try and flip things around and look at the positives. So, okay, we haven't been able to go out as much, but I got to spend some amazing time with my daughters and I've really enjoyed that. So, 99.9% of the time, every cloud has a silver lining, and I think that's true. I think, it's the obvious, and I know we're talking about physical activity, but it's really important to get out, get daylight. I've just recently got one of those lamps, that glows at you because I was feeling a bit glum because I'm stuck in all the time, and that that's helped me a little bit, only a few percent, but it's helped me a bit. But it's really important to keep your body active. It's the machine that you need to keep working. If you sit inside all the time in the dark, playing computer games, just watching telly and sapping your brain away, you're not going to feel good. It's going to become overwhelming. Just get outside. And I know that's not always easy, particularly depending on where people are living, etc. But just try and get some fresh air. It's also difficult when it's chucking it down with rain. I'm pointing over there because I'm looking out my window. But what's that famous saying? There's no such thing as bad weather. There's just bad clothes. Just get some clothes on and get out there and get wet. It doesn't matter.
Likes of like Mika Horsberg, Phil Eaglesham, Eric Horry, Dejan. I don't know if you met any of them. Maybe you have in London 2012. Yeah. So they sort of all struggle with mental health problems, and it always sort of resulted to a revival through sport. They would always come back to that. So would you sort of agree that sort of getting involved in physical activity in sport is a massive positive for someone with who is struggling with mental health?
I think so, but I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I didn't know I loved team sports, and I didn't know how competitive I was until I started playing them. But that's not going to be right for everybody. It might be that you go and try a sport and you don't enjoy it. I just think physical activity and looking after yourself is really, really important this time, to get your heart working and, to build up a bit of a sweat. I think, it releases so many good endorphins. You're going to be sleeping better. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. But I think the first step is actually doing something. I think you've always got that excuse, haven't you? Oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Oh, I'm going to do it next week. Oh, it's raining. Don't just go. Oh, do you know what? I'm doing it now. Just put your shoes on and go. Doesn't matter. I mean, if there's a thunderstorm, maybe don't. But the rest of the time, just get out there and do something now and take that first step on that journey.
Yeah, and once you take those steps, you're saying they sort of keep going, and then sort of...
I think it's like those meals you have. Like you have one of those meals that you forget how good it is, like beans on toast, simple meal, and you eat and you go, oh, this is amazing. Why don't I eat more beans on toast? You go out for a walk and you'd be like, this is really good. Why don't I go out for more walks? The next thing you know, you're getting out on your bike and it just builds up.
Mate, it's a good one though, because it's true. Mate, I've started having spaghetti hoops again, mate, and now I'm eating them like at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Not that bad for you. They're pretty good, mate.
Yeah, this is it. So with COVID and with the lockdowns happening and the Paralympics being pushed back, what effects and challenges has this had on your training? And how have you overcome that? Yeah,
it's been mental. So we so if you think of elite sport, basically the general rule is no one can stay completely fit all the time. So you need to do this. You kind of peak and trough. So if you imagine building up to a major competition, it's like you're making your way up the hill. You're doing the most difficult, hardest sessions. You're building up, you're making yourself as fit as you can. You're blacking out sometimes, you're throwing up in the gym. You're an absolute mess from training because you're building up to a major competition. Just before the competition, it's like you're coming over the top of the mountain and you do really short, sharp sessions so you get as much recovery as possible. And then when you go into the games like the Paralympics, it's like you're running down the other side. You feel as fit as you've ever felt, but everybody else has done the same process, so you don't have an advantage. So if we were 2/3 of the way up that mountain when the games got cancelled. So it was, and I get this is just sport. Look, I mean, when you think about some of the situations people have been put in with COVID, this is nothing compared to them. But just to talk from my experiences, I mean, we were 2/3 of the way up there and they just said it's not happening. And I had to completely change my mindset because, I was on a knife edge. I was building up towards this, and like everything was focused on this one goal at the end of the year. And then they said it wasn't going to happen. So quite quickly, I had to change my training. So rather than doing like this really powerful stuff, I was like going out on my hand bike for a couple of hours and just taking in the scenery. I was going out for like a walk with my kids and things, just to keep myself ticking over. But just to not be at that 100% because I was going to burn out otherwise.
So once after the Paralympics was supposed to happen in 2020, did you kind of already have set goals for 2021, or was it sort of not knowing, so your training was still off a little bit? Or
I have a support team around me of people who train me. So we quite quickly get new style training programs through, like written by sport. I'm very privileged. I have sports scientists who would write my training programs, so we would just modify it straight away. But yeah, so the program would just change to reflect the fact that the dates are different. But it was just really peculiar because none of us had access to the facilities that we normally had. So I'm normally in like a high performance gym, a sports science lab with these amazing pieces of equipment. The next thing you know, I'm sort of sat in my garage with a rowing machine, and a couple of weights. And it's you just had to do the best with what you had. But now, fortunately, we're starting to get back to a place where we can train as long as we're very careful, etc. But it's still tough. It's still tough. I'm just trying to be positive.
Yeah, definitely.
I love what Active 360 do, and that's why I came on board as an ambassador. I've worked with a number of the members of staff on the team for years now, and I just passionate about like physical activity, young people being active. We've spoken a lot about this already, and when they kind of put it to me and said, "Would you like to come on board?" I bit their hand off. It was a no-brainer for me. Everything they do, the fact that they're a social enterprise, they put lots of the funding that they receive back into other projects to help out more people. It's just, everything they do is amazing.